When Breath of the Wild came out on Switch in 2017, they introduced a brand new mechanic not really seen before in the mainline Zelda games. Link could find many weapons throughout the world, and could freely switch between them during combat, whereas before, you would typically stick to a single sword at all times. For this video, we're going to implement some kind of menu so that we can switch between the weapons that we have within our inventory. Of course, in order to do this, we're going to need a few more weapons for our game. I've added a second sword, as well as the magic rod. They all currently operate the same as the sword from the previous video, but when the weapon is spawned, the game calculates the stats for that particular weapon type, and sets the appropriate sprite for the weapon. As a result, I can simply change Link's weapon ID to one of these IDs, and he will be using the corresponding weapon. Building onto this, we want Link to have an inventory to carry each of these different weapons, and we want to be able to switch between them during gameplay. To accomplish this, we need to think about things on a data structures level, and how we're going to keep track of which weapons Link currently has in his inventory. Here's how we'll start things off. We're going to create a table, or a list, that will represent our weapon inventory. When Link finds a new weapon, we want to add a new weapon object to this list. This weapon object will store a few properties, such as the weapon type and its current durability. As Link finds more weapons, we'll just keep adding them to this list until it reaches some maximum capacity. Then during gameplay, we can just keep track of the weapon index, or the position in the list, for which weapon Link currently has equipped. To test this out, I dropped in some weapons that Link can walk into and pick up, which will add that weapon to the list. Once he picks up a few of these, we just need a bit of UI to show what's in our inventory. Here's what I put together. We display each of the weapons we picked up in a row. The one that we have equipped is highlighted, and we have this block cursor that we can move around between these items. I can use this to click on any of these weapons to equip it, and going back to the game, we'll see that Link is now using that weapon. If I pick up more weapons, this list will grow. One last detail is I'm going to display the name of the weapon on screen for whichever one we're currently hovering over. Just to reiterate what's going on here, whenever we equip a weapon, we are essentially telling Link the index of the weapons list that he has equipped. In this example case here, we have index 3 equipped, and Link knows this, so whenever he attacks, he'll simply look up in the list what weapon is at index 3, grab its information, and use that weapon in the game itself. And at a glance, you might think that's all we need to do, but there's one issue with this plan, and it's that weapons can be removed from this list at any time. Just like in Breath of the Wild, we want Link to be able to drop weapons to make room, or they might just break on their own. Here's why this is a problem. Let's say our list of weapons was these 4 items. Link currently has the 3rd index item equipped, so Link just keeps the number 3 in mind to keep track of this. At some point, the player decides to make more room in their inventory and throws away the 2nd index item, which will shift all the other weapons over to fill in the gap. Now here's where the problem comes in. Link is still thinking of index 3 as his equipped weapon. After the shift, the weapon at index 3 is different than what it was before. There are a few things we could do here to compensate for this. A simple solution would be to decrease Link's weapon index if a weapon prior to it was removed. However, this feels a little bit hacky, and there may be scenarios down the line where this option wouldn't be available. Here's my foolproof solution. Whenever a weapon is added to Link's inventory, we will assign it an ID. Just some long random number. Then, instead of Link keeping track of the index of his weapon, he'll instead keep track of his weapon's ID. The ID is tied directly to the weapon itself, so no matter how the weapons shift around in the inventory, whenever Link needs to swing his sword, he can look through his inventory, scan through the different IDs, and when he finds the one that matches, we know with certainty that it is the correct weapon to use here. Now when I remove weapons from the list in-game, the correct weapon stays highlighted. The very last thing I want to do with this weapon system is actually with the menu itself. It feels a bit jarring having the weapon menu open and close so suddenly like this. I'd like to add some tweening here. Tween is short for between, meaning we can make this transition a bit more smooth. For instance, I have a dark background in place for the menu. How about we make it fade in and fade out, rather than just getting dark so suddenly? I can make this happen by applying a tween to the alpha component of the background, or in other words, the transparency. Here's how that looks. Let's do the exact same thing for the weapon boxes too. Then finally, I think a neat effect would be to have the boxes rise up a little bit, rather than staying motionless in place. Here's how that looks. Then finally, let's speed everything up a bit just to make it snappier. And in the end, we got a great looking menu for switching between our weapons. I like how this game is going so far, but it definitely still has a clone feel of the original Legend of Zelda. In the next video, I'll be looking into adding more custom sprites to this game to make it more unique, while also sharing the same vibe as Breath of the Wild. You can find all of the code for this project on GitHub. This particular video had a lot of code updates implementing the UI, and the links to both the full repo as well as this video's code can be found in the description. If you like this video, I'd greatly appreciate you liking it, and if you'd like to see more, please subscribe. I greatly appreciate the support.